It started with the kind of thunder you only hear when tens of thousands of boots hit the same patch of dirt in perfect, chaotic rhythm. Columbus, Ohio, wasn't exactly the beating heart of the music world, but once a year, Sonic Temple transformed it into a cathedral of chaos. This year was different. This year, they weren't just selling tickets, they were selling prophecy. For the first time in its hard rock-laced history, Sonic Temple was opening its gates to a pop icon. Not just any pop icon, Ariana Grande. Her name printed right between Metallica and Alice and Chains sent the internet into spasms months before. The crowd was divided. Some called it evolution. Others called it sacrilege. That Saturday night, the air was so electric it felt like the weather was afraid to storm. 78,000 people packed the stadium. Beer spilled. Eyes rolled. But phones were out, glowing like digital fireflies, all aimed at one spot, center stage. Ariana arrived in black. Not the glittering lavender dresses or the feathered angel wings her fans were used to. No, she wore matte black leather, zipper-lined and metal-studded, her iconic ponytail slicked down into a blade. When she stepped into the spotlight, the stage didn't just light up, it ignited. "Ohio," she said, her voice husky, smoky with something new. "Let's break a few things." The crowd roared, though it wasn't entirely clear if they were cheering for her or just the madness of it all. She launched into a reworked version of Seven Rings, with distorted guitar riffs ripping under her vocals, and for a second, it felt like the two worlds, metal and pop, could coexist. But that was before the bottle. It came out of nowhere. A beer bottle, arcing like a comet, spinning in the air, catching the light just long enough for everyone to see it, before it exploded against the stage 3 feet from her. Security flooded the pit. Ariana didn't flinch. She stared into the crowd, eyes scanning like lasers. And then she said it. "Throw another one," she hissed into the mic, "and I'll come down there myself." The stadium froze. Someone screamed. Not a scream of panic, but something stranger. A scream of recognition. And that's when the video surfaced. It was grainy, filmed on a shaky iPhone from the VIP section, but it captured everything. Ariana standing still, shoulders squared, mouth barely moving, and the bottle veering mid-air, like it was pushed away. Like she had willed it to miss. Conspiracy hashtags exploded across X within hours. Hashtag Grande Hex trended in 32 countries. Fans speculated she'd been practicing some kind of metaphysical defense art. Theories spun out of control. Witchcraft, telekinesis, mind control. Some laughed. Some packed up and left the festival grounds before sunrise. But the real chaos didn't start until Sunday morning. At 3:47 a.m., a sound technician named Trevor Mathis was found unconscious behind the main stage. His earpiece melted into his flesh, eyes bloodshot and wide open. They said he was breathing, but no one could wake him up. Beside him, a single note, handwritten in red Sharpie on the back of a setlist. The sound isn't hers. Security reviewed hours of backstage footage. At 2:16 a.m., Ariana had been seen entering a small white tent behind the main stage. She wasn't scheduled for another rehearsal, and no assistants followed her in. The cameras glitched for 6 minutes. When the feed returned, the tent was empty. But someone else had seen her. Her name was Mallory Kane, a stagehand working the lighting rig. She was 24, student dead out the ass, and practically living on caffeine and Oreos that weekend. When she reported what she'd seen, no one believed her, until she broke into tears in front of the production director. "I saw her," she said. "I swear to God, I saw her." But it wasn't Ariana. Not the same one that was on stage. She described the figure in the tent as wrong, like the features were too perfect, the skin too smooth, the eyes too deep, like looking into a tunnel with no end. She said the woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. And when she blinked, Mallory saw something slide behind her pupils, something slick and silver. They sent her home after that. The show went on. By Sunday afternoon, Ariana posted a photo of herself in a hotel mirror, middle finger up, lip curled in mock rebellion. The caption read, "Keep crying. I'm just getting started." But someone had already started digging. His name was Elijah Rames, a freelance journalist and Sonic Temple regular. He'd been covering the festival for 7 years, mostly writing set reviews and drinking cheap bourbon between acts. But this year he had a different assignment. A friend at Billboard had asked him to profile the Grande shift, how pop stars were invading metal territory and whether it meant the end of genre purity. Elijah wasn't a believer in magic, but he knew when something didn't smell right. He reviewed every set from Saturday night, analyzing crowd reactions, rewatching fan videos frame by frame. What he noticed wasn't just Ariana's performance, it was the frequency. Something about the audio feed during her set distorted nearby recordings. The waveforms were warped. Dogs outside the venue howled. One man posted on Reddit claiming his sleep apnea machine went haywire during her final song. But the biggest red flag was a backstage pass log. At 1:43 a.m., someone swiped into the secured lower stage tunnels using a pass registered to a name that didn't exist on any staff list, Celestine Gray. That name shouldn't have meant anything. Until Elijah searched the local database and found a grave in a private cemetery 30 miles north. Celestine Gray, born 1892, died 1924. The headstone was blank except for one word. Singer. And then there was the audio file. A lost file recovered from the backup rig Trevor had been monitoring before his collapse. No vocals, no music, just a low hum, like the earth itself was whispering. Frequencies below the range of human speech. But if you played it loud enough, slowed it down just enough, you could hear a voice, faint and breathy. She opens the gate with song. When Elijah played it at a local audio lab, the technician bled from one ear and passed out. By Monday morning, the media was spinning everything. Ariana's team denied all claims, called the bottle incident a prop gag, dismissed Trevor's condition as heat exhaustion. But the story had already slipped from their control. People didn't want facts. They wanted answers. Or better yet, a reason to be afraid. And that's exactly what they got when someone found the mirror. A tall, antique standing mirror left behind in the white tent. Festival organizers insisted it was never part of any set. Carved into the frame, in Latin, Cantus portem apert. The song opens the gate. By Tuesday morning, Sonic Temple's stages had been dismantled, the last of the roadies gone, and the trampled grass of historic Crew Stadium stood quiet, but the story was far from over. What should have been just another weekend of deafening amps and overpriced beer had mutated into a narrative pulsing with paranoia, folklore, and something no one could quite name. Elijah Rames hadn't slept. Not since the mirror. He'd gone back to the festival grounds after bribing a security contractor with a bottle of Glenfiddich and a promise of silence. The tent was still there, or rather, the remains of it. Torn at the seams, the ground scorched in a perfect ring around the base. The mirror, however, was untouched. It stood like a sentinel in the middle of the blackened soil, wrapped in a silence so complete, it pressed on Elijah's ears like altitude. He dared to touch it. The glass was warm. Not like sunlight warm, more like body warm. Like someone had just stepped away. His fingers twitched as he saw his reflection, warped subtly. His features were his own, yes, but just off, his eyes too dark, jaw too wide, the smile twitching before he actually made it. He stepped back. And behind him, in the mirror, something moved. There was no one behind him. Elijah snapped a photo with his phone. It captured nothing but the empty reflection of the burnt tent. But that night, when he reviewed the image at home, it was there. A shape. Feminine, tall, hair coiled into a high ponytail, eyes luminous like melted mercury. Her mouth was open, not smiling, singing. And the waveform on the image file, yes, the image, wasn't flat. It carried audio. A frequency embedded into the pixels themselves. That shouldn't have been possible. But it was. Elijah took the photo to a friend, Natalie Breyer, a former DARPA contractor who now worked at a private audiovisual research lab outside Cincinnati. She ran it through an acoustic spectrogram and stared, pale, as the data bloomed across her screen. This isn't a photo, she murmured. It's a carrier. A carrier for what? She turned to him. A voice. The spectrogram, slowed and filtered, carried a melody, low, haunting, a lullaby sung in reverse. When they ran it through a pitch inversion, the words came into focus. 3 mirrors, 3 keys, 3 voices. She will rise when they align. Elijah didn't know whether to laugh or scream. It sounded like prophecy. Or worse, a plan. But someone else already knew. The next day, TMZ broke a story. An anonymous source close to Ariana Grande's team had leaked a rehearsal schedule for a secret European tour. The venues weren't arenas. They were cathedrals. Every one of them known for their acoustics and, stranger still, for their mirrored altars. Paris, Milan, Prague. And the first date? June 6th, Prague, the Church of St. Nicholas, home to one of the largest antique convex mirrors in Europe. Elijah knew that wasn't coincidence. But before he could act, things escalated. Mallory Kane, the stagehand who'd seen the not Ariana in the tent, was found wandering barefoot in the middle of a highway outside Dayton, her eyes sunburnt shut, muttering lyrics no one recognized. She was institutionalized, sedated, her family refusing to speak to press. Meanwhile, More videos began to surface. Clips from the festival posted by fans across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, each distorted in some way. Faces blurred. Audio tracks devolving into whispers or static. In one video, posted by a user named at Black Gospel Grunge, Ariana stands mid-performance, and for a split second, her shadow splits into two. Not just in lighting, in form. One arm moves out of sync. One shadow lingers after she walks away. Natalie sent Elijah one text that night. This isn't her. Or not just her. Something is layered. Not mimicking. Syncing. Elijah pressed her for more, but she stopped responding after midnight. When he finally drove out to her lab the next morning, he found it empty, except for her notes, her laptop wiped clean. Makola, December 5th, 2025, 21:55. The only remaining item was a single flash drive pinned to her corkboard with a bloodied thumbtack. It contained a file labeled Aurora_pathway_1. Inside, a sound. 30 seconds of harmonic resonance that triggered Elijah's fire alarm system without touching a single decibel over the limit. When he played it a second time, the screen cracked. The frequencies were alive. Something was coming through. Meanwhile, Ariana's team issued a public statement. She would be taking a break from public appearances, citing creative realignment. Her fans mourned. But others, those who'd been at Sonic Temple, weren't buying it. A Reddit thread titled, "She Sang and Something Answered," went viral. Over 10,000 users reported symptoms after her set: migraines, tinnitus, night terrors. Some described dreams of corridors lined with mirrors, humming voices, and a feeling of being watched by someone with their face, but not their soul. One chilling post stood out. I woke up at 3:33 a.m. My Alexa turned on by itself and played a reversed version of God is a Woman. My cat hissed at the wall for 20 minutes. I looked in the mirror, and I was smiling. But I wasn't. Even skeptics couldn't ignore it anymore. Something had happened that night at Sonic Temple. And if Elijah's suspicions were right, it wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The mirrors weren't metaphors. They were gateways. And the voice, the other voice, had only just learned to sing. By the end of the second week, Elijah Rames was running out of allies and time. His inbox overflowed with strange emails, audio engineers warning him to stop, spiritualists offering blessings, and one chilling message sent from a burner account titled, "She Remembers You." It contained only a single image, a grainy still from Ariana's Sonic Temple performance. But the crowd had been blurred out, the colors inverted. At the center of the stage, her mouth was wide open mid-note, and something was climbing out of it. Thin arms, pale hands, teeth where none should be. Elijah stared at it for hours. He didn't sleep that night either. He had started to dream in frequencies. Not visuals, not narrative. Just tones, rising and falling like breath, with a pulse beneath, irregular, too fast to be human. And always, always that voice, whispering not to him, but through him. One becomes two. Two becomes chorus. Chorus becomes gate. He hadn't spoken to Natalie since the flash drive incident. Her number was disconnected. Her lab shut down under the guise of biometric radiation contamination. The story didn't even make the local news. Elijah had seen enough cover-ups in his day to know when silence had been purchased. But someone else found him. Her name was Dr. Eleonora Schultz, a retired musicologist from NYU with a focus on psychoacoustic ritual structures. She looked like someone's grandmother and spoke like someone's last warning. She contacted Elijah after reading his anonymous leaks on an encrypted server. Sound, she said when they met in a near-empty diner in Columbus, has always been a bridge between dimensions. He nearly choked on his coffee. You mean like magic? I mean like math. But the kind of math that ancient temples were built with. Resonance, frequency, vibration. If someone found the right voice, matched the right pitch, under the right mirror, then what? She leaned in. Then it's not just sound anymore. It's permission. Elijah listened as she described a theory she had buried for years, that throughout history, certain vocalists became vessels. Not possessed, not evil, but used. Not everyone could do it. The voice had to be perfect, pure, tuned like a sacred instrument. Marian seers called them echo bearers, she said. Others just called them cursed. Ariana, with her 5-octave range and unnatural vocal control, might have been the perfect echo bearer. And somewhere, something had finally heard her. Dr. Schultz had read about the mirror found in the tent. She pulled out a photo of an identical one, taken from a Vatican archive, carved with the same Latin phrase, believed to have been lost in a fire in 1912. It didn't burn, she said. It was taken. And there were others. 2 more mirrors, still missing. Each part of a triad, one designed to reflect the voice, one to contain it, and the third to release it. Elijah finally understood the message in the audio. 3 mirrors, 3 keys, 3 voices. Ariana was one. But who were the other 2? The answer came from an unlikely place, an old recording engineer who'd worked on her album Sweetener. He contacted Elijah anonymously, paranoid and rambling, but he confirmed something strange. During the studio sessions, certain notes Ariana sang would cause every light in the booth to flicker. Equipment malfunctioned. One of the producers refused to return after hearing what he called a second voice layered beneath hers, saying words in reverse. They had dismissed it as compression artifacts. Now, Elijah knew better. But the second voice wasn't just a side effect. It was learning, replicating, mimicking the tonal structure of Ariana's own voice until it could stand on its own. Dr. Schultz believed it was a process, an incubation. And once fully developed, it wouldn't need Ariana anymore. It could sing on its own. And that's when Ariana disappeared. No public appearances. No photos. Her team posted vague updates. Working on something new, retreating for inspiration, be back soon. But her closest collaborators hadn't heard from her. Her dog sitter said the house was eerily quiet. Her vocal coach claimed their last session ended with Ariana screaming in a language she didn't know, then going silent mid-note, mouth open, no sound emerging, just a pressure in the room that made his nose bleed. Then came the video. It hit Reddit first, posted to a fringe conspiracy board by a user with the handle @nullsoprano. The grainy footage showed a woman in black walking into an abandoned opera house in Prague. The timestamp matched the night Ariana was supposed to arrive for her first European tour stop. Her walk was jerky, like a puppet moved underwater. When she reached center stage, the audio kicked in, a low hum that made the file size balloon to 10 times its normal weight. She raised her hands and began to sing. But it wasn't her voice. It wasn't any voice. It sounded like 1,000 people exhaling in unison through broken flutes. The walls of the opera house shook. The camera cracked. The final frame showed the mirrored chandelier splintering inward, as though something on the other side was reaching through. Then darkness. Elijah watched the video 50 times. And on the 51st, he saw it. A figure in the mirror behind her. Not her reflection. Not human. Mouth stretched open to its ribcage, light pulsing inside like a heartbeat. Its head tilted, listening, singing along. Back in the States, strange events followed wherever Ariana was rumored to appear. A private jet grounded due to inexplicable electrical failure. A cathedral in Milan evacuated after spontaneous glass implosions. And always, always the sound. Subaudible frequencies. Harmonics that triggered emotion before thought. Fear. Awe. Submission. The voice was no longer confined. Elijah, exhausted and half-mad, returned to where it started, the sonic temple grounds. He stood where the mirror once stood, now a blackened patch of earth, barren even of worms. The ground was humming beneath his boots. He knelt, and from somewhere far below, he swore he heard her voice. Ariana's voice, but laced with something else. Something that wasn't asking anymore. Something that was calling. Elijah Rames stood in the dark, trembling silence of the scorched earth where the white tint had once been, the place where the mirror first stood, where the voice had cracked reality open like an egg. Beneath his feet, the soil pulsed. Not metaphorically, it literally rose and fell, as though something vast and breathing lay just beneath the crust. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But there was nowhere left to run. He wasn't just investigating anymore. He was part of the court. After weeks of following shattered sound waves and shadowed whispers across continents, Elijah had finally found the last clue, hidden not in a Vatican archive or tech lab, but in a dusty trunk buried behind a boarded-up church outside Toledo. The trunk contained sheet music, older than electricity, inked by hand in a ciphered language not even Latin scholars could identify. But the arrangement of the notes, the structure, was unmistakable. It was a composition, a final performance, labeled only with one name, Cantus Ultimi. The last song. Elijah brought it to Dr. Schultz, pale and trembling in her assisted living apartment. She examined it for hours, lips moving silently as she traced the lines of ink with trembling fingers. When she looked up, her face had changed. No longer curious. Just afraid. This isn't just music, she said. It's a mechanism. A mechanism for what? Her eyes shimmered with tears. For release. For the final unlocking. The song doesn't call the voice. The voice is the key. The song opens the door. Elijah's mind reeled. Ariana hadn't been possessed, not exactly. She'd been tuned, sharpened, refined over years by handlers who thought they were chasing perfection, unaware they were helping something ancient find the perfect vessel. And now, the voice inside her had learned the final note. The mirror in Prague had cracked, but there were still 2 more mirrors. One of them, Elijah discovered, had been relocated to Los Angeles. A piece of modern art, unacknowledged, mounted in the foyer of a private venue known only to the elite. The kind of place where industry secrets were whispered behind cocktails and designer sunglasses. The other? Still missing. But it didn't matter. The process had begun. On June 9th, Ariana's team announced a surprise live stream titled Resonance. No location, no time, just a countdown. Fans lost their minds. Reddit went into meltdown. Some claimed it was just a viral campaign. Others knew better. The live stream began at 11:11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The screen was black. Then, a single note. Soft, impossibly pure. So clean it pierced the mind like ice water to the skull. No visuals. Just sound. People across the world began to report side effects. Nosebleeds. Visions. Devices rebooting themselves. Some said the sound made their walls tremble. Others said their mirrors fogged up from the inside. And then the voice. Not Ariana. Not entirely. It was her, yes, but deeper, layered, echoed. Something else was singing with her now. Not a duet. A fusion. Elijah sat alone in a bunker below an abandoned radio tower in New Mexico, his laptop glowing, speakers wired to old analog failsafes. He listened as the voice unfurled across the world. Each note unlocked something. The second mirror shattered somewhere in L.A., caught on security footage as shards levitated mid-air before evaporating. And then came the moment no one could explain. The stream cut. Silence. For 8 seconds. Then a face. Not Ariana. Or rather, not only Ariana. The face looked like her, yes, but it was wrong in ways the brain couldn't place. Lips moving out of sync. Eyes not blinking. Hair that didn't sway. It smiled slow, unnatural, and spoke not in sound, but in vibration. Like the room itself was forming words. You've heard the echo, the voice said. Now hear the source. And the world went quiet. Literally. Globally. For 2 minutes and 17 seconds, no sound registered across the planet. Not a car. Not a voice. Not even birds. It wasn't silence. It was absence. Afterward, scientists scrambled for explanations. Solar flare. Satellite interference. Psychological mass hallucination. But those who felt it knew better. Something had passed over. Or maybe through. A week later, reports began to surface. People who no longer cast reflections. Children born humming melodies their parents couldn't identify. Towns where everyone began to sing in their sleep, in languages older than language. And Ariana? Gone. Her team claimed she was resting. Her label released a statement. Art demands isolation. But her last known photo, taken by a hotel staffer in Zurich, showed her standing in front of a full-length mirror, her hands pressed against it, mouth open wide, eyes rolled back, as though mid-note. No one could confirm if the mirror was still intact. Elijah published everything. The recordings. The documents. The audio files. Most were dismissed as ARGs, alternate reality games, creepy fiction, clickbait. But a small group knew. A growing community. They called themselves the Frequency. And they were listening. Preparing. Because the composition wasn't complete. One final mirror remained. One final note had yet to be sung. And when it came, and not even the deaf would be spared. Elijah sat in his apartment, surrounded by analog tape and paper files, watching the world twist just slightly more each day. The voices were everywhere now. In wind. In static. In silence. A chorus gathering beneath the floorboards of reality. He picked up his recorder, hit play, and whispered. If you're hearing this, it's already started. Then he turned toward the mirror across the room and saw her watching him. Not Ariana. Not anymore. Just the voice. Smiling. Humming. Waiting for you to join in.